Welcome to your storytelling. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to subscribe. I never thought it would happen to me. I trusted her completely. She was everything I ever wanted: loving, supportive, and seemingly honest. But when she told me she was going to visit her mother in another city for the weekend, something in me shifted. There was a nagging feeling deep down, an instinct I couldn't ignore. She'd gone on these trips before, and I never thought twice about it. But this time, it felt different. Maybe it was the way she hurried out the door, the way her phone seemed to buzz constantly, or the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she said goodbye. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it, but that feeling wouldn't leave me. I tried to distract myself, but all I could think about was where she really was. Why was she being so secretive? My mind raced with possibilities. What if she was hiding something? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being lied to. I decided to follow her. It was a big step, but I had to know the truth. I waited a few days, and then I quietly planned my trip. I didn't want to make it obvious, so I took a different route and kept my distance. I was nervous, but I had to find out what was really going on. I arrived in the city she said she was visiting. I parked a few blocks away from the address she'd given me and started walking. My heart pounded in my chest. This didn't feel right, yet I couldn't stop myself. I kept my distance, staying hidden behind trees and buildings, watching for any sign of her. Then, I saw her, standing outside a cafe, laughing with a man I had never seen before. They were so close, almost touching. My stomach twisted. Was this just a friendly meeting, or was there more to it? My mind raced with 100 questions. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Could she really be living a double life? I couldn't tear my eyes away from them. The man she was with had his arm around her waist, and they seemed so comfortable, like they had known each other for years. My hands trembled as I watched them, trying to stay hidden. They laughed again, and she leaned in as if they were sharing an intimate moment. I felt a surge of anger and confusion. Who was this man? Why hadn't she told me about him? I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of the unknown. I wanted to storm over and confront them both, but I knew I had to stay calm. So, I kept watching, my heart sinking deeper with every second. After a few hours, they finally left the cafe. My mind was spinning with questions. I followed them discreetly, trying to stay far enough away so they wouldn't notice me. They walked down a quiet street, and I noticed they entered a building I had never seen before. My heart dropped. This wasn't just a casual meeting. They were heading to an apartment. She had told me she was visiting her mother. But this was something else entirely. I stood outside for a moment, trying to process what I had just witnessed. I couldn't bring myself to go any closer, but I knew I had to find out more. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had just seen. My mind kept replaying the images of her with that man, the way they interacted like they were more than friends. I knew I had to know everything. So, I decided to visit the building the next day, under the pretense of running an errand nearby. I found a cafe across the street where I could watch the entrance without being too obvious. Hours passed, and then I saw her again, leaving the building. But this time, she didn't have the man with her. She looked different, more tired, more distant. I felt a cold wave of realization wash over me. Was she hiding more than just a relationship? The next day, I decided to confront her. I had to know the truth, no more secrets. But when I called her, her voice sounded off, as if she were trying to hide something. She told me everything was fine, that she was just tired from the trip. I pressed her about the man I'd seen, but she quickly dismissed it, saying it was just a colleague. My gut told me she was lying, but I didn't have concrete proof. Yet, I hung up the phone, feeling more confused than ever. But deep down, I knew I had to find out what was really going on. I spent the next few days researching. I couldn't stop myself. I found the address of the apartment building she had entered, but it was no help. I searched for anything about her trip to her mother's, but it didn't add up. The whole story seemed fabricated. My mind raced with suspicions. Was she hiding something more than an affair? I had to get answers. I couldn't live in this fog of uncertainty. But how would I get them without pushing her away? A week later, I had another chance meeting with someone who knew her. I was at a store when I bumped into an old friend of hers. "How's your wife?" he asked casually. My heart skipped a beat. He mentioned that he had seen her a few times recently, at a different cafe than usual, with a different group of people. He even mentioned the man I had seen her with, though he didn't know his name. Something about his tone made me feel like he knew more than he let on. I left the store feeling more determined than ever to get to the bottom of things. I couldn't wait any longer. I decided to confront her again, this time head-on. As soon as she walked through the door that evening, I asked her about the man. "Who is he?" I demanded. Her face went pale. For a moment, she didn't answer. Then she sat down, her shoulders slumping. "He's someone I've been seeing," she confessed. "I'm sorry, but I didn't know how to tell you." I felt the ground shift beneath me. She had been living this double life, and now she was finally admitting it. But why had she kept it from me for so long? My mind was racing, but I had to hear more. She explained everything. The man she'd been seeing was someone she had met before we got married, someone she never fully let go of. She told me she had wanted to be honest, but she was afraid of how I would react. "I love you," she said, her voice trembling. "But I also love him." I could barely breathe. I felt betrayed, crushed, and confused all at once. How could she love two people at once? How could she keep this secret from me for so long? I couldn't look at her. The words she had said echoed in my mind like a nightmare. "I love him." How could she say that to me? I thought we had a strong marriage, a foundation built on trust. But now, everything felt like a lie. I walked out of the room, unable to process what had just been revealed. My heart ached, but I had to leave. I needed space to think, to breathe. But where did I even go from here? The next few days were a blur. We barely spoke. She stayed in our bedroom while I roamed the house, lost in my thoughts. I didn't know what to do or how to handle this. Friends and family noticed something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to explain it to them. How could I tell them my wife had been living a double life? I kept replaying our entire relationship, looking for clues, for signs I might have missed. But it all felt like a game I had lost. I had a decision to make. Could I forgive her? Could I trust her again after everything she had done? I loved her, there was no question about that. But the betrayal cut so deep. I spent hours reflecting, trying to figure out if there was any chance for us. I knew I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. It was time to face the reality of the situation. Could I move forward with her, or was it better to part ways and heal? Just when I thought I had made up my mind, I received a call from the man she had been seeing. I didn't know whether to answer or not, but something compelled me to. He introduced himself and apologized for his part in everything. He told me he hadn't known she was married when they started their relationship, but once he found out, he couldn't walk away. "She told me she was unhappy," he said. "I never meant to hurt you." The conversation was civil, but it left me with more questions than answers. Was she unhappy with me all along? I felt like I was being pulled in a million different directions. The man's call had unsettled me, but it also gave me some clarity. I wasn't the only one hurt by her actions. She had deceived both of us. I realized that it wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about finding peace for myself. I couldn't control her actions, but I could control how I reacted. I decided to have one last conversation with her. I needed closure, and I needed to know if we could ever rebuild the trust that had been shattered. When I sat down with her again, I knew this was it, the last conversation. No more secrets, no more lies. I had to ask the tough questions. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me with eyes full of regret. "I was afraid of losing you," she admitted. "I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't live a lie either." The pain in her voice was real, but the damage had already been done. I felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. Her words didn't erase the hurt, but I needed to hear them, to understand why she had made these choices. Forgiveness. It was such a heavy word. I had spent so many days thinking about it, wondering if I could ever truly forgive her. The truth was, I wasn't sure. Could I forgive her for betraying my trust, for hiding this life from me? But then I thought about all the good times, all the years we had spent together. My heart was torn between love and pain. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. Maybe it was about finding peace within myself. But was I ready for that? Could I let go of the anger? As we continued to talk, she revealed something I hadn't expected. I was scared, she confessed, her voice shaking. I didn't feel good enough. I thought if I stayed with you, I would always be second. My heart broke as I heard her words. She had been so unsure of herself, so afraid of not measuring up, that she had built this secret world where she could feel wanted. It didn't justify her actions, but it explained them. I could see the vulnerability in her eyes, the brokenness she had hidden so well. But was this enough to rebuild everything? I knew I had a choice. I could walk away and never look back, or I could try to heal with her. The thought of rebuilding trust seemed impossible, yet I couldn't help but wonder if there was a way to move forward together. I couldn't undo what had been done, but maybe we could start fresh. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be quick. But I realized I had to give myself the space to heal before I made any final decisions. And that meant taking things one step at a time, without rushing the process. Over the next few weeks, things were strained between us. There was a quiet distance, an unspoken gap that I wasn't sure we could ever bridge. She was trying to show me she was committed to fixing things. But I was still in shock. I couldn't just erase the betrayal. My trust in her had been shattered, and I wasn't sure how to piece it back together. We started talking more, but every conversation felt like walking on fragile ground. I had no idea where this journey would take us, but I couldn't stop thinking about how much had changed. As time went on, I began to notice small changes. She was more open, more honest with me than she had been in the past. I started seeing a side of her that I hadn't known before, a side that was vulnerable, human. It wasn't easy for either of us, but we were trying. I started sharing my feelings more too. Slowly, we began to rebuild, brick by brick. But every step forward felt like 2 steps back. The old wounds were still there, and every now and then, they would reopen. But somehow we kept going. One evening, I asked her if she had seen the man again. She was honest with me. She hadn't. But there was a part of me that wondered if she had truly let go of him. I wasn't sure if I could ever fully believe she was done with him. I realized I needed to hear it from her. Needed her to make a promise that this chapter was closed. She promised. But trust, I learned, wasn't something you could demand. It was something you had to rebuild together. Even if I wasn't ready to fully trust her yet, I had to believe in the possibility of change. One night, after a long conversation, we sat quietly in the living room. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful, almost hopeful. We were still a long way from where we used to be, but there was something different in the air. I felt a tiny flicker of hope. Maybe we could make it. Maybe we could come out of this stronger than before. I didn't know for sure, but for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to believe in a future with her again. It wasn't going to be easy, but we were both willing to try. I woke up one morning to a text from her. It was simple, but it meant so much to me. "I love you," it said, "and I'm so sorry for everything I've put you through. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." I couldn't help but smile, even through the lingering pain. She was showing me that she meant it, that she was committed to doing better. But it wasn't just words anymore. It was action. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were moving in the right direction. I didn't have all the answers yet, and I didn't know what the future would hold. But in that moment, sitting next to her, I realized something important. We had both been through so much, but we had also been willing to face the truth. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure. We were in it together. For better or worse, we were both committed to rebuilding what had been broken. And that, in itself, was the beginning of something new. Things didn't change overnight, but each day felt like a small victory. We began to rebuild our life together, bit by bit. I wasn't expecting everything to be perfect, but I started seeing the woman I had fallen in love with again. The woman who was willing to fight for us. She still had a long way to go in proving that she had truly let go of the past, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were in this together. I wasn't sure where this journey would lead, but I was willing to find out. Even though we were working hard to rebuild our marriage, trust was still a major challenge. Every time she went out, I couldn't help but wonder if she was hiding something. I knew it wasn't healthy to keep questioning her, but the doubts lingered in the back of my mind. She could tell that I was struggling, and she did everything she could to reassure me. But the scars from the past were still fresh, and trust wasn't something you could just switch back on. It would take time, and I had to be patient with myself, just as much as I needed to be patient with her. One day, I woke up feeling different. The heaviness I had been carrying for so long seemed to have lifted, just a little. Maybe it was the time we had spent apart, working through our issues, or maybe it was the small gestures of kindness she had shown me in the past few weeks. But in that moment, I realized something important. I didn't need to carry the burden of betrayal forever. I had a choice. I could either continue holding on to the past, or let it go and move forward. I wasn't ready to forget, but I was ready to forgive. I took a deep breath and decided to let go of the anger that had held me captive. As we sat together that evening, talking and laughing like we hadn't in so long, I realized that we had made it through the worst of it. The journey hadn't been easy, and it wasn't over yet. But we had come so far. We were learning to communicate better, to understand each other's fears and desires. Our marriage had been tested, but it wasn't broken. It had simply been reshaped by the challenges we had faced together. I knew that we weren't perfect, and we never would be. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. A new beginning was possible, and together, we would create a future built on truth, trust, and love. Thank you for listening to my story until now. If you like the video, please support it by subscribing and liking.